Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating perspective on arguably the greatest historical figure of all time, Jesus Christ. But we aren't going to look at him just as some distant, untouchable icon in a dusty history book. Nope, we're looking at him as the ultimate relatable hero, especially when it comes to the incredibly messy, confusing, and, let's be honest, really challenging experience of being a kid and growing up. If you've ever felt like literally no one understands the pressures of youth or the daily struggles you face, well, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to what we've got prepared for you today.
Right off the bat, let's just dive in and tackle the elephant in the room. Did Jesus really understand what it's like to be you? It is so incredibly easy to fall into the myth that Jesus just kind of floated a few inches off the ground glowing and was completely disconnected from everyday normal human problems. We almost always picture him as this fully formed adult who already has all the answers to everything. But to actually grasp his story and what our source text is telling us today, we have to completely shatter that illusion. He didn't just bypass the awkwardness, the steep learning curves, or the day-to-day struggles of growing up. He lived them.
To really understand his youth, we first have to look at the standard he set. The source text describes his character as one of unexampled excellence. Think about that. It means he's set a bar that had literally never been seen before, embracing everything that's pure, true, lovely, and of good report. Even as a young person, he carried himself with an absolute perfection of grace. But, and I want to be super clear here, this wasn't some automatic robotic perfection that was just handed to him. It was a very real, intentionally lived experience. And this brilliantly illustrates the balance he maintained. As the book of Hebrews puts it, he was holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners. Now, what does that actually look like for a kid or a teenager navigating a complex world? Well, our source material points out that he possessed incredibly high intellectual powers right in the morning of his life. He wasn't wasting his time on frivolous parties, sensual pleasures, or self-indulgence. The text says not a single hour of his youth, from childhood all the way to manhood, was misspent or frittered away on things of no profit. Yet, incredibly, even with all that discipline, he remained deeply connected to the everyday human experience.
The really crucial point here is captured so beautifully in the book of Luke. Jesus increased in wisdom and stature. I want you to focus on that word for a second. Increased. He had to grow up just like you. He wasn't born with a fully developed adult brain preloaded with every fact in the universe. As he grew in years, he grew in knowledge. His physical and mental powers had to be expanded and developed, exactly like yours or any other kid's. He actually had to put in the effort, the time, and the energy to learn.
So how exactly did he do it? Well, it wasn't magic. It was pure discipline. He lived temperately. He entirely avoided indolence, which, by the way, is really just a fancy word for extreme laziness, and he avoided self-indulgence. Instead of taking the easy road, he focused on developing a truly healthy body and true powers of mind. He studied the Word of God. Hard work, prioritizing physical health, and deep, rigorous study were the absolute bedrock of his ordinary daily life as a young person.
Okay, let's transition into the emotional core of this explainer. Because let's be real, growing up isn't just about reading books and eating your vegetables, is it? It's emotionally exhausting. It's tough. And the text makes this profoundly comforting point. Jesus felt that exact same weight. Aside from the dread of the consequences of sin, because of course he was sinless, his condition, emotionally and physically, was exactly as yours. He felt what you feel.
It's so easy for us to think our modern struggles are entirely unique to us. But just think about your own difficulties for a moment. The sorrows, the hurt feelings, the painful indifference from kids you really thought were your friends. Christ's difficulties were a perfect mirror image of that. The text explicitly states that you do not have a single difficulty that did not press with equal weight upon him. His feelings could be hurt by neglect and by the indifference of professed friends just as easily as yours can. Yes, he experienced the exact same friend drama and social isolation that makes growing up so incredibly difficult today.
And that brings us to this incredibly powerful number, 10. If your path feels a bit thorny right now, the source tells us that Christ's path was thorny in a tenfold sense. Are you distressed? So is he, but magnified. Now, this doesn't minimize your struggles at all. Actually, it elevates him as the ultimate empathetic guide. He isn't just shouting advice at you from a safe distance, he's walking you through a minefield he has already crossed, having felt the explosions 10 times as intensely.
So, let's move forward and see how this all builds into an incredible, actionable challenge for your daily life. Because he shared in your humanity so completely, he is uniquely fitted to be your ultimate role model.
This isn't just about admiring some historical figure from afar, like a statue in a museum. It's about taking his example and bringing it directly into your school, your work, and your everyday relationships right now.
Here are the practical, actionable steps outlined directly from our source text. Number 1, take Jesus as your standard. Not the influencers on social media, not the popular kids at school, but him. 2, imitate his life. Adopt those daily habits we talked about earlier: diligence, study, health. 3, and honestly, this is the beautiful core message of our explainer today: truly fall in love with his character. Deeply appreciate his pure, true, and lovely nature. And finally, number 4, walk as Christ walked. Embody his grace, his discipline, and his empathy in your own life.
Now, you might be sitting there asking, okay, but what actually happens if I do this? Well, the reward is pretty extraordinary. Imitating his character isn't just about following some long list of restrictive rules. In reality, it literally unlocks your mind. The text promises that a new spring will be given to your intellectual faculties and a large scope to your thoughts. Think about that. When you study his life and apply his habits, your mental and physical powers actually expand, preparing you for absolutely anything the world throws at you.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question to chew on. Are you ready to bring your powers into vigorous contact with eternal things? Things which are intrinsically grand and great. By choosing to fall in love with the character of Christ, you aren't just finding a peer who totally gets your youthful struggles. You are connecting your very mind to the eternal. I really encourage you to take up that challenge today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this fresh perspective totally changes the way you view your own path forward. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time.